Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're getting into a massive, frankly fundamental shift happening behind the scenes in the sports world. We're talking about how coaches themselves are actually educated. We're going to break down this incredible journey from rigid, abstract theory into dynamic, everyday practice, leaning on some of the latest pedagogical insights. It's a fascinating evolution, so let's dive right in. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with the evolution of coach education, move into the challenges of modern classrooms, break down a helpful framework for decision-making, hit on 3 steps to success, and then wrap the whole thing up with cultivating collaborative learning.
All right, Section 1, the evolution of coach education. So there is just this night and day contrast between how things used to be done and how they're done now. In the old days, the educator was, well, just an instructor. The whole environment was purely functional. It was totally teacher-centered, meaning students basically just sat there and passively absorbed information. But today, totally different story. Coaching education is now highly evidence and reality-based. The modern educator isn't up there lecturing. They're acting as a facilitator to drive a truly student-centered experience.
To put this into perspective, let's look at Scott O'Donnell. He's a coach educator with 30 years of experience under his belt, and he captured this shift absolutely perfectly. He said, "I transitioned from an instructor to a developer." When he reflected on his early days of teaching, he realized those old methods were entirely teacher-centered. He actually started to doubt whether his students were learning anything at all. And that realization is what pushed him toward creating a much more interactive, developmental environment. Which brings us to Section 2, challenges in modern classrooms. Okay, so one of the absolute biggest hurdles today is trying to cram completely unrealistic amounts of theory into incredibly tight timeframes. It can feel like this frantic, breathless race just to get through the syllabus. And the problem is, that rush directly competes with what we're actually trying to achieve here, meaningful learning. When you rush through the theory, you completely sacrifice that crucial student-centered environment we just talked about. On top of that, educators often walk in lacking some pretty crucial background information. Imagine being assigned to teach a room, right? And that room has everyone from top-tier professional club coaches to absolute beginners just taking a quick refresher course. Oh, and you might be doing this in a totally foreign country. Without understanding the local culture or the specific coaching environments of those students, trying to teach effectively becomes a massive, massive challenge. We've all been there, right? Think back to a time you were sitting in a classroom, desperately scribbling down just mountains of notes that you didn't even really understand. Not exactly an ideal way to learn. So instead of that mindless note-taking, the modern goal is to build a safe space that actually challenges these coaches. You want to encourage them to start thinking for themselves and coming up with their own unique solutions. Let's look at how we solve that in Section 3, a framework for decision-making. To help guide professional development, a brilliant model was created by Abraham, Collins, Morgan, and Meir. It focuses on 6 really critical areas. Essentially, educators need to adapt to the local culture, really grasp the distinct motivations of their coaches, and design environments that actually support adult learning. Plus, they've got to carefully manage how the curriculum is delivered, honestly assess their own goals and limitations, and then stand on top of the day-to-day process of coach development. It's like a giant puzzle they have to put together.
So how do we actually do this? Section 4, 3 steps to success. Going back to Scott O'Donnell's reflections, he gives us 3 very concrete, practical steps for turning all this complex theory into classroom reality. Step 1, understand your student coaches. Step 2, embrace reality-based learning. And step 3, balance your knowledge with your communication.
Let's break those down. Step 1 is literally all about understanding who is sitting in front of you. To overcome that challenge of diverse backgrounds we mentioned earlier, educators absolutely must prioritize identifying what their students actually need, what motivates them, and what their current coaching abilities are, way before the heavy teaching even starts. Once you actually get who they are, you move to step 2, embracing reality-based learning. This means actively tailoring your teaching approach so it perfectly suits those specific backgrounds and aspirations. By making the content reality-based instead of just abstract theory, you make it directly, undeniably relevant to their actual day-to-day coaching reality. It clicks for them. And finally, step 3. This is a big one. It's all about balancing your knowledge with how you communicate it. Look, a coach educator might be brilliant. They might be completely up to the speed on the latest tactical trends, cutting-edge conditioning, you name it. But, and it's a huge but, if they lack the ability to effectively communicate and impart that knowledge, they are going to struggle. Even the smartest educator will fail to get those desired learning outcomes if they can't connect. Communication is absolutely paramount. which leads us perfectly to Section 5, cultivating collaborative learning.
There's this fantastic quote from Dr. Mark O'Sullivan, an associate professor over at the Norwegian School of Sport Sciences. He puts it so beautifully. He says, "A good learning environment learns in and teaches the coaches much more than the coach educator can teach, learn out." I just love that. The goal isn't just to project information outward. It's to build a space where the collective experience in the room teaches the participants way more than the instructor ever could on their own. And honestly, that is the true evolved pedagogical role of today's coach educator. It really isn't about being the loudest voice or having all the answers or being the smartest person in the room. It is entirely about creating a warm, inviting environment where coaches actually want to learn, where they feel safe enough to collaborate and discover those unique solutions together. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a direct, pretty provocative question pulled straight from our source material today. How can coach educators balance the latest trends and methods with meeting their student coaches' incredibly diverse needs for effective learning? It's tough, right? It's this ultimate tightrope walk between maintaining high-level subject knowledge and delivering deeply empathetic, customized communication. I'd highly encourage you to think about how you might actually apply this framework in your own environments. Thanks so much for hanging out and exploring the fascinating evolution of coach education with me today. I'll catch you in the next explainer.